Here, I'm going to share you some important question for a backend developer interview. So, if you are a backend developer or you want to work with backend, you can watch this video. So, the very first question is, what is your experience with database? So, in this question, you have to explain your experience, that what kind of database you have used, like most common used database like MySQL, and PostgreSQL, and MongoDB, like that, with Redis or whatever. So this is the very first question from DB for a backend developer. They are commonly asked. Then the second question is which is very important. What is RESTful API? So in that section, you have to explain what is RESTful APIs and what is HTTP, GET, POST, PUT, DELETE methods, and what like client server model and resources data. These are the things you have to explain, and the architecture style, right? So you have to explain these things, and you can read this answer as well. And the very third question, which is also very important, is what is the difference between synchronous and asynchronous programming language? So if you are a Node.js developer, so in this case, this question is very common. Actually, I'm taking an interview, so this is a very common question. Also, I'm asking to the candidate that what is the difference between synchronous and asynchronous. So you can say that non-blocking and blocking function. What is the difference between blocking and non-blocking function? Because the thing synchronous and asynchronous and blocking non-blocking are the same things, but the name is different. So the thing is that synchronous works, you have to tell to the interviewer that what is the synchronous function do or process does, and what is the asynchronous process does, right? So Node.js is a single threaded, so that's why it's use a synchronous function or process to process the data and to achieve multitasking, right? So that's why it's not providing non-blocking function that doesn't wait for anything. So you can also read the answer from here. So this is a very common question. And the next question is, explain the concept of caching. So caching is the process of storing frequently accessed data, right, in memory. So that's called caching. Actually, it's just storing some data in memory, right, and retrieve quickly whenever necessary. So this is also a very common question for a backend developer, and you can read the answer from here, right? And the very fifth question is, what is MVC? MVC stands for model view controller, right? Where model is the structure, defines the structure of the schema. So that's why, and view is the and rendering process you are using, like HBS. So that's a viewing engine, you have to tell that. That's why. So view is a viewing engine, you can say, like we are using HBS and EJS now these days, right? So this is another thing. And MVC is also containing the model, business logic, and views, which is the interface, right? You can read it from this. And controller is the main part of the MVC, because in the controller you are writing the business logics, right? So it's very important question as well. So MVC. After that, how do you ensure the security of your application? So you have to explain how can you provide more security to your application. Like we are using OAuth and JWT. JWT token is very common use in PHP and Node.js. In Node.js, it's very common use, and in PHP Laravel also it's used. So JWT token is also we are using, and that stands for JSON Web Token. And another very high security thing is that OAuth is also very interesting thing that provides you security for your application. Okay, so you can read the answer here. And so another question is, explain the difference between server side rendering and client side rendering. So as the question says, you have to distinguish between the server side rendering, client side rendering. So SSR is stand for server side rendering. That's a process of rendering a web page on server. So in the website, whatever the website code is there, HTML code, it will render in the server side only, right? But CSR, which is stands for client side rendering, is a process of rendering a web page in the client side by using JavaScript. So you are using JavaScript, so you can render a page in your client side from your client side. But when you load the render the page from server side, like we are using it like HBS and EJS, now these just we are using very commonly with Node.js. So in that case it's called server side rendering. But with HTML we are using to load in just normal web page with HTML JavaScript. So that's called client side rendering, right? For that we are using Bootstrap, JavaScript and normal HTML pages. So SSR is faster for first load, while CSR is faster. So it's saying that server side rendering is faster than client side rendering, right? So it's faster than client side rendering. So that's all the very important question for the backend developer. So keep learning, keep exploring.